She knelt in the dirt to feed a beggar, and they laughed at her, called her foolish, destroyed her life for one act of kindness. But what they didn't know was who that beggar really was. This is the story of Amara, a nobody who became a target, a victim who became a victor, and a single meal that changed everything. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button because what you're about to witness will restore your faith in kindness. This isn't just a story, it's a warning to the cruel and a promise to the kind-hearted.
Amara's world was small, but filled with light. At 24, she worked as a junior accountant at Goldstone Holdings, one of the most prestigious firms. She wasn't wealthy. Her salary barely covered her modest flat and her younger brother's university fees. But she had something money couldn't buy, a heart that refused to harden. Every morning, she passed through the gleaming glass doors of Goldstone Tower, past the marble lobby where her colleagues strutted in designer heels and Italian suits. Amara wore the same 3 dresses on rotation, carefully pressed each Sunday night. No one noticed her. No one except Mrs. Flake, the elderly security guard, who always smiled and said, "God bless your journey today, my daughter." But this Tuesday morning was different. As Amara approached the building, she saw a figure huddled by the gate, an old woman, bent and trembling, wrapped in filthy rags that might have once been colorful. Her face was hidden beneath a torn headscarf, and her bony hand extended toward the rushing crowd with a cracked wooden bowl. "Please." The woman's voice was barely a whisper. "Just small something. I never chopped since yesterday." The city's elite rushed past her like water around a stone. Some wrinkled their noses in disgust. Others pretended she didn't exist. One man in an expensive agbada actually stepped over her outstretched hand. Amara stopped. She opened her worn leather bag and pulled out the small cooler containing her lunch, jollof rice and plantain she'd packed before dawn. It was all she had until evening. Before we continue, comment below the country you're watching from. She knelt beside the old woman. "Mama, please, take this."
The old woman's trembling hands reached for the food container. Her fingers, gnarled like ancient tree roots, brushed against Amara's smooth ones. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Amara felt something strange. The woman's eyes, though clouded with age, held a depth that seemed to see straight into her soul. "God bless you, my daughter," the old woman whispered, clutching the food to her chest like precious treasure. "It's nothing, Mama," Amara smiled warmly. "Enjoy it." She stood, brushing dust from her knees, and turned toward the building, only to find herself facing a wall of smirking faces. Chidinma stood at the center, arms crossed, designer sunglasses perched on her perfectly styled hair. She was the CEO's niece, a marketing executive who treated the office like her personal kingdom. Beside her stood 3 other young women from the finance department, all dressed in clothes that cost more than Amara's monthly rent. "Well, well, well," Chidinma's voice dripped with theatrical disgust. "Saint Amara strikes again." The others giggled. "Girl, did you just give your lunch to that thing?" asked Ngozi, wrinkling her nose. "She's a human being," Amara said quietly, moving to walk past them. Chidinma stepped into her path. "No, darling, she's a beggar. There's a difference. And now you'll starve all day because of your village mentality." She emphasized the last words like an insult. "At least I can sleep at night," Amara replied, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Chidinma's smile turned cold. "We'll see how long that righteousness lasts, Amara. Pride comes before a fall. Remember that." She swept past, her perfume overwhelming, her laughter echoing in the lobby.
That afternoon, Amara's stomach growled through every meeting. She ignored the hunger, focusing instead on the quarterly audit she was preparing. Numbers had always made sense to her. Unlike people, they didn't lie or pretend. She didn't notice Chidinma watching her from across the open office, phone pressed to her ear, eyes narrowed with calculated malice. "Uncle, I need to talk to you about something serious," Chidinma purred into the phone. She was speaking to Mr. Adeleke, the CEO, her mother's younger brother. "It's about the audit department." "Yes, uncle, I think we might have a problem." By 4 p.m., Amara was summoned to the CEO's office, a summons that made her colleagues whisper and stare. Junior accountants were never called to the top floor unless something was very wrong. Mr. Adeleke's office was a cathedral of wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Victoria Island, leather furniture, and walls lined with certificates and photos of him shaking hands with governors and senators. He sat behind his massive mahogany desk, fingers steepled, face unreadable. Chidinma stood by the window, her back to them, but Amara could sense her satisfaction. "Miss Amara Okafor," Mr. Adeleke began, his voice formal and cold. "How long have you worked here?" "2 years, sir," Amara answered, her mouth suddenly dry. "2 years," he nodded slowly. "And in those 2 years, have we not paid you fairly, treated you well?" "Yes, sir. Very well." "Then perhaps you can explain," he opened a folder on his desk, "why we've discovered irregularities in the client accounts you've been managing. Specifically, why 50,000 naira is missing from the Danladi Holdings account." Amara's world tilted. "Sir, I don't understand. I've never—" "The transfer was made from your computer terminal yesterday at 3:47 p.m. Her blood ran cold. "That's impossible." Amara's voice trembled. "I was in the records room at that time. Mrs. Folaki can confirm. I signed out at 3:30 and didn't return until after 4. Mr. Adeleke's expression didn't change. "The digital logs don't lie, Miss Amara. Your password, your terminal." Chidinma finally turned from the window, her face a perfect mask of concern. "Uncle, maybe we should call the police? I mean, if money is missing—" "No!" Amara's heart hammered. "Sir, please, check the security footage. Check the sign-out logs. I wasn't even at my desk." "Security footage from that wing was mysteriously corrupted yesterday. A technical glitch, IT said. Very unfortunate timing." Amara stared at her, understanding flooding through her like ice water. This wasn't about missing money. This was punishment. Revenge for the morning's humiliation, for daring to stand up to Chidinma, for being different. "Please, sir," Amara pleaded, turning back to the CEO. "I would never steal. My record is clean. Check everything." "I already have." Mr. Adeleke closed the folder with finality. "You're suspended pending investigation. 2 weeks, no pay. Security will escort you out. If the money isn't returned by Friday, we'll have no choice but to involve the authorities." "But sir, I have rent due. My brother's school fees." "You should have thought about that before." His tone was ice. Chidinma smiled, checking her manicured nails. "Some people's village mentality catches up with them eventually. Maybe feeding beggars when you're stealing from your employers isn't the best look." Amara felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of them. Security arrived. She was walked out like a criminal while the entire office watched in silence. Amara sat on the floor of her small apartment, back against the wall, staring at nothing. The humiliation of being escorted out like a thief replayed in her mind on an endless loop. The whispers, the stares, the satisfaction in Chidinma's eyes. Her phone buzzed. Her landlord. "Rent is due Friday. No excuses this time. Another message. Her brother Chike. Sister, my school just sent another warning. If we don't pay by next week, they'll withdraw me from final year. She buried her face in her hands. 2 years of impeccable work, destroyed in one afternoon. How could she prove her innocence when the evidence had been manufactured so perfectly? Her savings account held exactly 12,000 naira. Not enough for rent, not enough for Chike, not enough for anything. A knock at the door startled her. Amara? It's me, Funmi. Her neighbor, a retired teacher, stood in the doorway holding a plate of rice and stew. I heard what happened. The whole compound is talking. I don't believe it for 1 second, but I thought you might be hungry. The kindness broke something in Amara. The tears she'd held back all day finally came hot and unstoppable. Funmi set down the plate and held her, rocking her like a child. Shh, my dear. This too shall pass. The God who sees the sparrow sees you too. I gave away my lunch this morning to an old woman, and now I have nothing. Maybe Chindinma was right. Maybe my kindness is just foolishness. Never say that. Funmi said firmly. Bread cast upon waters always returns. You'll see. But Amara couldn't see how. Her world had collapsed. Her reputation was destroyed. She had no money, no job, no hope. That night she lay awake, praying to a God who seemed very far away. She didn't know that miles across the city, in a mansion, that same old beggar woman was making a phone call.
The mansion in Ikoi was a fortress of old money and older secrets. Behind its high walls and manicured gardens, the beggar woman stood in an opulent study, her rags replaced by an elegant wrapper and blouse. Her bent posture had straightened. Her trembling hands were steady as she held a crystal glass of water. Chief Mrs. Adaeze Nwanwa, one of Nigeria's wealthiest widows and a silent shareholder in dozens of companies, including Goldstone Holdings, studied the photographs spread across her mahogany desk. "So this is the girl," she murmured, gazing at a photo of Amara being escorted out by security. "The one who fed me without hesitation." "Yes, ma," replied Tunde, her personal assistant and head of her private security team. "Our investigation confirms everything. The girl is innocent. The CEO's niece, Chidinma Okonkwo, orchestrated the entire frame-up. Mrs. Adaeze had been testing people for 40 years, since her husband's death left her vulnerable to vultures disguised as family. She'd learned that true character revealed itself not in boardrooms, but in the streets. So twice a year, she disguised herself as a beggar and walked among the people who claimed to be righteous. Most ignored her. Some cursed her. A few threw coins from a distance, careful not to touch her. But Amara had knelt beside her, had given her only meal, had looked at her with genuine compassion. "Tell me everything about this Chidinma," Mrs. Adaeze commanded. Tunde opened his tablet. Chidinma Okonkwo, 26, marketing executive at Goldstone. Her uncle, CEO Adeleke, has been embezzling from the company for 3 years. We have evidence, falsified contracts, offshore accounts. Chidinma helps him cover the tracks. And the girl, Amara? Clean as fresh rainfall, supports her younger brother through university. Never missed a day of work. Colleagues say she's brilliant with numbers, but too quiet to be noticed. Too quiet. Until now. Mrs. Adaeze picked up her phone and dialed. "Hello, Mr. Adeleke? This is Mrs. Nwanwa. I'll be visiting Goldstone Holdings tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp, and I want every employee present."
Amara woke to her phone ringing at 7 a.m. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Miss Amara?" a crisp, professional voice. "This is Mr. Bancole from Goldstone Holdings HR. You're required to attend an emergency company meeting this morning at 9 a.m. All staff must be present. But I'm suspended. The order comes from the board of directors. It's mandatory, Miss Amara. Failure to attend will be considered resignation." The line went dead. Amara's hands shook as she searched her tiny wardrobe. What did one wear to their own execution? Because that's what this felt like, a public sentencing before they handed her over to the police. She chose her best dress, a simple navy blue Ankara print her mother had sewn before she died. "Let them remember I had dignity," she whispered to her reflection. At Goldstone Tower, the atmosphere was electric with tension. The entire staff, from janitors to executives, crowded into the main conference hall. Whispers rippled through the room like wind through grass. "What's happening?" "I heard the board is here." Someone said Mrs. Adazy is coming. At the mention of that name, voices hushed. Mrs. Adazy Nwankwo was a legend, a woman who'd built an empire, who could make or break companies with a phone call, who hadn't been seen in public in months. Amara stood at the back, invisible as always. Chidinma held court near the front, surrounded by her usual admirers, laughing loudly, confident. Mr. Adeleke stood beside the podium, checking his watch nervously. At exactly 9 a.m., the double doors opened. Mrs. Adazy Nwankwo entered, dressed in regal Iro and Buba, her head wrapped in gele that added inches to her already commanding presence. Tunde and two other assistants flanked her. The room fell into absolute silence. Amara's breath caught as she noticed something familiar. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and Amara's world stopped. Those eyes. She knew those eyes.
"Good morning." Mrs. Adaeze's voice filled the room with quiet authority. "I apologize for the dramatic summons, but what I have to say cannot wait." Mr. Adeleke stepped forward, his smile obsequious. "Mrs. Adaeze, we're honored by your presence. If this is about quarterly dividends—" "Sit down, Mr. Adeleke." Her tone was ice. He sat. She walked slowly to the center of the room, her gaze sweeping across the faces. "Last Tuesday morning, I stood outside this building, hungry, dirty, begging for help." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Chidinma's smile faltered. "I have made it my practice, you see, to walk among people as they truly are, not as they pretend to be in boardrooms. I test character where it cannot hide behind designer suits and rehearsed speeches." Amara felt every eye beginning to turn toward her. Her heart thundered. "Hundreds of you passed me that morning. Hundreds of good Christians and respectable professionals. You stepped over me. You cursed me. One of you," she looked directly at the man in the expensive agbada, "actually spat near my feet." The man's face drained of color. "But one person stopped." Mrs. Adaeze's voice softened. "One person knelt in the dirt beside a filthy stranger and gave away her only meal. Amara Okafar, please step forward." Amara's legs trembled as she moved through the parting crowd. Every face was a mixture of shock, envy, and dawning horror, especially Chidinma's. "This young woman showed me kindness when she had nothing to gain and everything to lose. And what happened to her? She was framed, humiliated, destroyed by jealousy and corruption." Mr. Adeleke stood abruptly. "Chief, I can explain." "Can you explain the 50,000 naira transferred from your personal account to match the missing funds? Can you explain the offshore accounts, the falsified contracts?" She nodded to Tunde, who projected documents onto the screen behind her. The room erupted in chaos. Chidinma backed toward the door, but security blocked her exit.
"You have no proof!" Mr. Adeleke's voice cracked with desperation. "These documents are fabricated."
I have 3 years of bank records, Mr. Adeleke, testimonies from your IT department about how you ordered them to corrupt security footage, and a confession from your assistant, who's been cooperating with authorities since yesterday. Mrs. Adaeze's voice was surgical in its precision. Mr. Adeleke collapsed into his chair, his empire crumbling around him. Chidinma found her voice shrill with panic. "Uncle, do something! This is a setup! That girl probably seduced you, or—" "Enough!" Mrs. Adaeze's command silenced her. "You accessed Amara's computer using a stolen password. You transferred funds to frame her because she dared to show kindness while you mocked her. You are not just cruel, Miss Okonkwo. You are a criminal." 2 police officers entered the hall. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. "Uncle!" Chidinma's Desert confidence shattered completely. She clutched at Mr. Adeleke's arm as the officers approached. "You promised nothing would happen! You said we were untouchable!" "Mr. Adeleke, Miss Okonkwo, you're both under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy," the lead officer announced, producing handcuffs. The room watched in stunned silence as the CEO and his niece were led away. Chidinma's expensive heels echoed against marble one final time. But now the sound was hollow, defeated. Mrs. Adaeze turned back to Amara, who stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "Miss Amara, effective immediately, you are appointed head of the audit department with a salary befitting your integrity. Your brother's university fees will be covered by my foundation, and your back pay, with interest and compensation for defamation, will be transferred today." The hall erupted in applause, but Amara barely heard it. She sank to her knees, overwhelmed. Mrs. Adaeze knelt beside her, just as Amara had knelt beside the beggar. "Never apologize for your kindness, child. It saved you when nothing else could."
6 months later, the transformed Goldstone Holdings gleamed with new purpose. Under new management and Mrs. Adaeze's watchful eye, the company had become a model of integrity. And at its heart was Amara, no longer invisible, but respected, her quiet brilliance finally recognized. But the greatest change wasn't in the office. Every Tuesday morning, Amara stood outside the building with containers of food, serving anyone who needed a meal. She wasn't alone. Dozens of employees had joined her, a movement born from one act of kindness. Mrs. Falake, the security guard, smiled as she watched. "You started a revolution, my daughter." Amara laughed. "I just shared my lunch." "And changed everything," said a familiar voice. She turned to find Mrs. Adaeze approaching, accompanied by a handsome young man in a well-tailored suit. "Amara, I want you to meet my son, Emeka. He's been abroad finishing his MBA. I've told him all about you." Mrs. Adaeze's eyes twinkled with matchmaking mischief. Emeka extended his hand, his smile warm and genuine. "My mother says you're the woman who taught her that true wealth is measured in character, not currency. I'd love to hear more over dinner, if you'll say yes." Amara blushed, glancing at Mrs. Adaeze, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd like that," Amara said softly. As the morning sun rose higher over Lagos, Amara understood a profound truth. The kindness she'd shown a stranger hadn't just saved her, it had revealed who she truly was, not invisible, not insignificant, but powerful in ways that money could never measure.
The lesson? Your character is your destiny. Kindness is never wasted, and the universe is always watching. If this story touched your heart, smash that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us what country you're watching from. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today, because in a world full of Chidinmas, we need more Amaras. Remember, the beggar you ignore today might be the angel who could have changed your life tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay kind, stay blessed, and never underestimate the power of a compassionate heart.